He just pulled his finger up, so. Hour over. All right. I will call the May 8th Administrative Services meeting to order. Okay, it is 8:34 according to the clock in the back. Roll call. Gloria?
Here.
Teresa?
Here.
Matt? Yes. Terry?
Yes.
Pam?
Here.
And I'm here, we're missing Eric. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from April 3rd?
So moved.
Moved by Pam, seconded by Teresa. Any changes or corrections to the Administrative Services meeting of April 3rd minutes? Not seeing anybody. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? They're approved. We just checked the public comment list. There is nothing on it. So we're going to pass public comment, go to member comments. Any comments, folks? Don't do them all at once. Okay. No presentation of new business at this point. Routine consent agenda. There's 5 items on it. Does anyone want any of those 5 items removed?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second by Matt? Because there's money involved, and we'll do a roll call. Gloria?
Yes.
Teresa?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes, that is approved. It brings us to boardroom. Okay, so now half the room leaves, that's all right. We don't mind.
I can grab something out of the
Doing business.
It's all right, my Wi-Fi still hasn't caught up to the here, so.
It is slow this morning. I might have a long time too.
Yeah, mine doesn't switch gears.
It was broken.
So,
Well, we just decided to pick up last month's.
yeah, pretty soon I'll be doing the, well, I was like, scroll up, Scott, I can't. I can't pull it. Oh, there we go.
That's a prior email on this.
Is this for all of us? You got one for all of us?
Pass it down.
Okay.
These were emails that were sent to me along the way. One is from Kelly. The first email that I have was from Scott, and that would explain probably what we got back a month or so ago. And I'll give Scott the chance to talk about that. The second email that I just handed out was from Kelly Wagner, who sent me a list of her suggestions. I made a mark on one of them, and we'll get to that eventually. Scott, whenever you're ready.
Okay, and then on Monday I sent out the working draft of the board rules with a summary of those changes previously just discussed or put on the table, let's say, by the Administrative Services Committee. And what I would suggest is walking through each one of those proposed changes and maybe get the committee's thoughts, feedback, whether it's good, whether it's, if you strike it, amend it.
Right ahead. Start at the top and go through.
Start at the top. Okay. First one is Article 1, Section 2. This is a really simple change, and I'm going to actually zoom in a little bit so people can see a little bit better. Really, in the succession for the county board chair, it really goes through the list of committee chairs. And inexplicably, the chair of the Planning Environment Development Committee was left off. So there it is. It's at the end, it could be at the beginning, wherever the committee wants to put it.
If we get that far down the list,
Yeah,
we're
we're
not
in
gonna have a
trouble.
quorum. So it doesn't matter.
It was true, although, so, I mean, as you saw the email, you're all
No,
seeing
I
the email.
understand.
There was a slight difference, I was wondering how this was decided at one point, and I don't really, I agree with you. When it gets past, vice chair, you have to wonder what's happening, that we're losing all of our committee members, or board members, right?
It's fine, I think that's a great place to go through the list. I don't know how, I have no idea how it was dropped. I suspect nobody paid any attention, because honestly, when you get through, I mean, we're talking, what, 7 people we've gotten through? 7 people are gone, or
Right.
unable to fill the role of chairman for the day.
Right.
Why are we having a meeting?
Right, no, but I think, I remembered this because Larry had brought it up at some point. During the,
We should call this the Larry Amendment.
I'm sure he'll love that, that's how he's gonna go down in history. So, I mean, it doesn't matter to me how it goes, but I was thinking when I was reading through it, I was like, I wonder how these were picked, because I would have a slightly different order, but I agree with you, it doesn't really matter, because the case of this happening would be so rare that it probably really doesn't matter.
I hope it never happens.
Right.
Okay.
All right.
I would say go on to the next one. I don't see that as being
Okay, so Article 2, Section 3.5. This is really simply a housekeeping item to align the board rules with the recent changes to the Senior Services Grant Commission. It pertains to the Public Health and Community Services Committee, and it really just it changes that previously all the members of PHCS were on the Senior Services Grant Committee. That was changed, it was discussed at the county board level, is to say, that shouldn't be, there's a better way. And the way that was decided through the bylaws of the Senior Service Grant Commission was to select one member of the PHCS to participate on the Senior Service Grant Commission. So this change simply aligns with the bylaws that were previously approved ultimately by the county board.
any objection.
Okay.
Keep going.
All right, housekeeping. So the next one that was put on the table, Article 2, Section 4. This was brought up to provide, 2 Section 4, bear with me as I scroll down there, hopefully I'm not getting anybody nauseous as I zip through it. Okay. This, the idea was brought up to give guidance on, or pertaining to county board members when they provide, about reading public comment. There have been times where county board members would use members' comment to insert public comment into the meeting. So this was put on the table, and what we endeavored to do was develop language based on the intent. So there it is for your response or reaction.
Can I make a suggestion? I mean, I don't know, in many of the entities I've been involved with, typically what happens is to limit the amount of time that people are, focusing in on letters given to them to read publicly. What we do is indicate as a member, I received a letter from one of my constituents to raise the meshes of this address. I'm entering it into the record. You don't read it, but you acknowledge that you've received it. It becomes part of the normal record of your minutes, but nobody's sitting there reading 4 pages from somebody. But it does become part of the official record if somebody wants to write a letter and submit it. Kind of a half thing here, and I just honestly, I just thought about it.
All I would add to it is that it be copied and handed out.
Well, you can do that too. I mean, I apologize. Yeah, but that's the whole idea, is so that you're not taking up individuals' time, but you are being responsive to your constituent and indicating that you're going to call it into the record, and copies have been provided to every single one of the members. That's just a
So
recommendation.
I'm actually looking at the paragraph above where it says, in discussions, the chairperson shall confine members to the matters under consideration. And I personally have used member comment to talk about items that the board has not wanted to talk about. So like one of the first, in fact, the first member comment I ever gave was over a consideration that the board was not going to discuss, it seemed to me, which was at that point, the ICE detention facility, right? And so if we're gonna say we can't talk about stuff that isn't under consideration, I think this is a time to mention, to put it out there that there are board members considering things that maybe the chair isn't gonna put on the agenda, right? So I would, yeah, that.
I think you're confusing 2 points.
Yeah.
I don't think that we have any ability to tell members' comments, or even the chair has an ability to tell members' comments, you can't talk.
Well,
But in the top part,
what does that mean to you?
that's talking, to me, that's when you're in an order of business. If we're talking about whether we're gonna put a new roof on the building, and you decide you wanna hijack the meeting and talk about ICE. The chairman has the right to say, keep it to this item that's before the board.
That portion.
I mean, and the chair of any meeting that's one of the jobs of the
Right.
chair is to.
Right, is to
right.
keep,
Everybody in their lane, yeah.
I mean, I don't.
I see,
I don't
so it's
think-
so it's talking in discussions, not that's part of,
Yeah,
to the business, that has nothing to do.
yeah,
I mean, that's
the
not
chair's still
having to do with
gonna,
members' comments, right?
the chair still has the right to say, hey, you're out of order.
Right,
And you as a board member have the right to raise a point of order saying, we're in the weeds here. We're
Right.
not talking about what we're voting on. And I'm guilty. I know that I've had times when I'm like, why are we talking about this when the motion is
right.
something completely different?
All right, so yeah, is that more?
Well, what about the time limit too, specifying the 3 minutes?
I don't think we've ever had a time limit on
We
us.
don't have a specific time
Yeah,
limit
members.
for members because it's tough to tell members your 3 minutes are up. We're here, we're members, we have a job to do, it's not the same.
I want to be.
Gloria and Matt are both up, so which one?
Yeah, I really don't think we should be limiting members' comments. I don't want to do that. At the same time, I do know that some of our members can, be very long-winded. So, maybe there should be some consideration for that, but I don't think it should be in the rules because this is the time that members get to speak. And we may have something very important. I've heard a lot of really interesting member comments come up. Sometimes I find out what's going on in different parts of the county and different parts of the world from listening to these members. So I don't want to tell them what they can and cannot say.
I suspect, on the other hand, if we got to 20 minutes, everybody in the world would be going, all right. we've had it."
Somebody will already call point of order.
Right.
But I like the part where Pam's suggesting about saying, look, if you've got a letter from a constituent and you want to share it, that's fine. I don't need you to read it to me. I'll be happy to read it. Give me a copy of it. Put it in the record. We can pass it, and it can be part of the permanent record. That's fine with me. But I don't think we need to have, somebody send in the encyclopedia to you to start reading.
I agree with that. If we have a copy of it, it's in the record. These are members' comments, not, reading what our constituents or anyone else has written.
Okay, so we'll have some work on that line. Does anybody have any counter to that, if you really want? I mean, I still don't think you can stop somebody from just reading it, but if it went on for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, I think you've lost your audience. Even if you want to do it, you've lost your audience.
So if I may ask with that, we start off by saying county board members shall refrain. Is that strong enough language, or do you want something more?
Refrain strong.
County board
Compelling.
members are discouraged.
I don't like shall refrain,
Okay,
it's
let's say our-
so
our-
discourage, yeah, that's our discouraged. Firm but softer.
Yeah, that sounds good. softer side of the
It should be
board.
R instead of shall.
Right, yes,
but-
yes.
R. Okay, and then I'll incorporate something to the effect of to acknowledge the letters and provide copies to the board members, so.
Yeah, I don't know that it matters whether it's during the public comment portion of the meeting or the other.
No, because it's a
I mean-
board.
Well, this is specific to member comment.
Yeah, that's what's been happening. The issue that occurred was that individuals were bringing in letters from their constituents and reading it during member comments. I think that's a dangerous precedent because then people choose to give their letters to somebody and they don't come to the meetings. Our meetings are in public, but they're not meetings for the public, right?
And my point was to make a member's comments are a member's comments.
Exactly.
Not a constituent.
Exactly, I concur. You know, so that's all I'm saying too, is that, but you don't want to say,
Right.
I agree with Terry, you don't want to refrain, it's just discouraged.
Do you want to leave in this second sentence where if a board member wants to read that letter, that they can get up to the podium during the 3 minutes of public comment, or strike that language altogether?
That should come out.
Yeah, I agree.
The public comment is, again, for public comment, member comments, or member comments.
Okay, we'll be working on this one again. Keep
Right.
going.
Yes, yeah. Well, because there was this time period, right, during COVID, when you couldn't come, so they got
Yeah.
dicey. And since then, some people have asked for us to be able to submit comments, but I don't know
But
who wants
even
to.
when we did it during COVID,
And we
it
should
didn't make any
invite-
sense to have, 20 letters read into the record and read. You could just as soon hand them out.
We should thank them and say you have the opportunity to present this during public comments, or someone can present on your behalf.
Mhm.
I mean,
That's good, right. Find somebody else to.
It's not, I understand, public comment is the way for public to address us. It's not a forum for people to, go talk to the newspaper. If they want to talk to the newspaper, they can go talk to the newspaper or the TV or whatever. It's a chance for people to tell us what they think we should be doing, not a chance for them to get their local issue before the newspaper. And it's the same reason we don't generally respond to them. It's not on the agenda, but we don't respond during our meetings to what's brought up at that point, because first, it's not on the agenda. We're not allowed to actually do, we can comment on it, I suppose, but you're gonna wish you had. So, anyway, let's go to the next one, Scott.
Okay, next one is Article 3, Section 1.4. This is
your pet peeve.
this is my ask. This was incorporated in the last board rule revision where once the meeting is started, and I guess the question is, when did this occur? But staff runs and they take the public comment sheet, we make a copy of it, we tape it onto the wall, and then we provide it to the chairman, and that way you have a record and anybody can see who signed in for public comment. So this was added in. The request is, do we need it?
I agree,
I say take it
delete
out.
it. Nobody ever looks at it. I laugh every time I watch you post it. And if anybody really wants to see, we have copies, we have video copies as well as copies of people who signed in. It's redundant.
It's also the result of a misunderstanding.
Yes.
That the fact that you signed up in an order doesn't necessarily mean the chairman has to call in that order. People came to the meeting at different times. They signed up in the order they arrived, not necessarily in the order of the topic or the order of the other reasons.
I was looking at.
I don't want him to. I don't want our chair, whoever our chairperson happens to be, to not be able to organize the meeting so that all the items on one topic are together. That just makes much more sense to me than have us skipping back and forth. So I'm perfectly fine with, and I just don't think that the public understood what they were signing up for.
Yep, I agree.
So I would be fine with taking it out, Scott. You win one.
Thank you.
Well, I know it's a bit of an entertainment when watching this, and my OCD would kick in trying to make sure it's perfect. Just right. Be happy not to do that anymore. So moving on. Article 3, Section 2.3. This is a new section that it was really difficult to find out where to put this, but in being consistent with our strategic plan, which endeavors to have a much greater reporting between your appointed bodies and committees to the county board, this really incorporates language to, I think, further expand on that strategic plan goal. What this does is it puts the onus, Friday, it basically puts the onus on the chair of that committee or that commission or appointed body to work with the liaison committee chair and then figure out how that should occur. So really, in the board rules, who does it have jurisdiction over? Really, your appointed liaisons to those county board or the special committees and appointed committees. So, and this wouldn't have any governance over, say, the fire protection district of Harvard that you appoint, but the liaison to that board, would have that responsibility on those board rules.
And that's what I'm trying to think of. I think of all the stormwater committees that we appoint, all of the fire districts we appoint, things like that. It'd be nice to know that they have something to tell us what's going on. I'd hate to find out, because nobody did report, that's why half the stormwater people don't, committees went out of existence because nobody bothered with it.
I too, I like this because we discovered obviously over time that we appoint people to boards and things happen internally and we have no idea what any of that is. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden you're blindsided by someone from your district saying, these are your people, what are you doing? So, I think the intent is phenomenal, even if it takes us a little while to get, into the groove of having it done. I think it's an important aspect to include in the rules.
I just want to point out that at the very end, you could see it's written very broadly. So whatever the liaison and that appointed body determined would be the form of the report, whether it's they come to the liaison committee or they go to the committee, whatever, or maybe just a written report that's provided. There's so many different options. It doesn't dictate how that report is delivered or the mechanism or when or to which committee. So that's still up in the air, but it does. I think it memorializes the intent to have a reporting mechanism.
And we may need to actually send letters to everybody that says, hey, by the way, we'd like to see your annual report. But I don't know that would be a board rule. That'd be something we would have to work out to make certain that happens. If we just give them a form saying, hey, fill out this letter, tell us what you did this year. Okay.
And I think it would be, that would be the simple start.
Speed limits.
All right.
I can hardly wait.
All right, moving on. Yeah, so section 4.11. Okay. So this came out as the Transportation Committee looks at speed limit or speed studies and determines whether or not there should be a change into a speed limit. They may review 2 or 3 or 4 different studies and only bring forward, let's say, one. The question was, what is the appropriate mechanism? Because if a resolution comes to this committee and this committee decides you don't want to do it, it still flows to the county board under new and unfinished business if you don't approve it. Speed limits have been approached a little bit differently, whereas if Transportation Committee didn't support it, it really didn't move forward out of the committee. What we've done in the interim while this is being determined was incorporate in the background discussion what roads or segments of roads were looked at and ultimately not moved forward. So at least the county board had some awareness of what the Transportation Committee was looking at. But the request was, going back to last year, we should look at the board rules and incorporate how that process should work. So here it is. And this is, so if you can see, there's 2 components to this. There's First, at 4.11, it exempts transportation ordinances other than speed zones from the 30-day review. So in other words, if there is a speed limit change, that would still go into 30-day review. Right now, as a transportation ordinance, it doesn't, or you can argue it wouldn't. And then secondly, then you have variations for what that language can look like. So what's proposed here is Chair of the Transportation Committee. So one is a simple reporting out by the Chair of the Transportation Committee to the County Board, what was looked at and not moved forward.
I take the third one.
I also like the third one.
Okay.
I don't.
I'm fine with that.
Huh?
I'm fine with that.
I think that we've just done the study. Look, we may not like lowering speed limits someplace, but there are times when it needs to be done.
So as the third one would be, each one would be an independent ordinance.
Comes in.
And then those that aren't recommended would go under new and unfinished business. And then,
Fine.
okay. All right. Consensus then for the third one?
That's fair.
All right. I made it easy. What would I notice? Let's say, let's make that green. Okay.
Can,
All right.
just to get us here, there was a reason originally why we exempted that. Does anybody know what that reason was? Just to
They had trouble getting, like, okay, when you're doing this is years ago.
Yes.
But they had trouble sometimes because of bid processes in the federal government, whatever, they needed speed. And so they just said, we're building a road. If you're working on Randall Road, it's not like it happened in 24 hours, but you might get to the final thing and actually need something done right now. So let's exempt that, because let's face it, Randall Road probably took 10 years to engineer and get the money for, and now you're at the last step and you can't do it because you gotta wait 30 days. And you may miss your building season, you might. That's how it got done years ago.
Okay.
They
just clarifies why it was necessary.
They found they were missing something at the last minute. They didn't want to miss the building season or And I suppose the alternative way to do that was that you would bring it up and have a supermajority vote to suspend the rules and then push it through. But
okay, I just asked.
Long ago.
Sharing history. So
No problem.
Okay. All right. So we got consensus on speed limits, and moving on to Article 3, Section 4.21. This we affectionately call the stay in your lane language. Really simple, but it endeavors to focus the county board on matters just germane to what you have under your authority, within the scope of your jurisdiction.
Can I would change will to shall.
So I want to talk about the application of this and make sure that I understand. So for example, we had the state of Illinois violating the Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. So we did was it a proclamation, a resolution, whatever. Would this have excluded us from taking an action on something like that? Because
It might have.
I would have said yes.
Really?
If we had this, I would have said it's not our jurisdiction. We can't
so we
speak to it.
can't have this because there are going to be things that come up, and our first words out of our mouth on the oath is to uphold the U.S. Constitution, and that is exactly what I thought about when I read this. So
Well,
we can't have this in there.
I would disagree by saying that this can be weaponized the other direction. A chair could literally bring Madigan used to do this, and this in Springfield. Everything that has nothing to do with your day-to-day existence that you don't want to vote on, you'll suddenly be voting on.
To distract.
But, and also with the solar end of it, it is in our authority, and the state took our authority away for that. So then how do you deal with that end of the voting on that? there'd be no way of dealing with that in place. There's no way of us as a county having autonomy to run the county or vote for the county.
I disagree. I'm
Okay,
gonna
right.
tell you, it was within our authority. It is a county issue, right? And even though they took it away, it still was something that we had authority over, you comment on.
But that's what was the point. It was in our authority.
I
They took it away, and then we even pitched around the board, why even vote on these anymore? Because they're no longer in our authority.
But we're still, Matt, we're still doing something.
I know we
right?
are.
Okay.
I know we are, but if we put this into effect, could we? That's my question.
Okay, so my news is you put things in, the idea is to try and have people stay in their lane. I think we're getting into the weeds. The idea is you want to bring forward and have the county board discuss the increase in a tax levy for a school district, way outside of our authority, right?
But then isn't that the chairman's responsibility to bring us back on a point of order for those things?
I think when we.
What we're encouraging to do with this is to do that.
Right, and I think that we talked about putting this, and maybe it needs to be wordsmith, but the idea is for new county board members to understand that they have to stay within their lane, that they don't have authority. They can't tell Crystal Lake what to do, they can't, you know what I'm saying?
I would love that, but we still have to have a way, a
Then maybe-
mechanism to talk about things that are pulled away from us that we're in our authority. We
Yeah.
used to do the solar,
You
we
have
don't
member
anymore.
comment, you can still talk about it, but we're not voting on it.
I have an idea.
Oh, I don't know how
I
that
have an idea.
does.
Could we just add scope of their oath, comma, jurisdiction and responsibility? Because in our oath, we say that we'll uphold the Constitution of the United States of America and the state of Illinois. There's a lot in that.
I don't have a problem with that.
I mean,
I don't have
you want to wordsmith it that way, that's fine. What I want to do is avoid loaded votes that I get stuck voting on because
Yeah. And Matt,
my political opponent decides to lob them up there for me.
Sometimes it's your not your opponent.
I know, that's true.
but Matt, I think there are other avenues that we have at hand too.
I don't mind this with that little tiny change of oath there, that because it still gives us the right, the authority. We're still voting on solar, and technically, we have no right to vote on
Well,
solar.
we have the right to decide whether or not they have the proper setbacks.
Right.
Well, yeah.
I think
Voted on
it's
the
important
setback.
that it's there though, because we
Wow.
spent a lot of time and a lot of money debating on issues that we had no control over.
I know.
That's correct.
Agreed.
So, legal fees and that kind of thing, and this was just ridiculous. So we spent a lot of time on those things. So we should remember, as a county board, there are certain things that are outside of our purview. We have no business going there. It's a waste of our time, and it doesn't benefit us in any way. It's, in fact, quite the opposite.
I have no problems adding oath and leaving it a little bit broader, but get rid of the WI, did you, Scott?
Well, it's
Is it
struck
crossed? I
out.
can't see
Crossed
that, no
out.
glasses, sorry.
Yeah, there's a strikeout there. See if I can-
But yeah, that's, I
mean,
If that
this
gives
is for
people more
things for
comfort.
voting on. I mean, you still have the dilemma that something could come up there, we might debate whether or not we should be voting on it, but to me, I just want to discourage us getting in that outside world. But anyway, go ahead.
Okay, so as written in changing will to shall and adding oath, consensus to move forward?
Yep.
All right.
So,
And the final final item we have on here is Article 4, Section 1.10. This is a new section that was proposed just to in essence, to be a reminder for county board members that during the board meeting and committee meetings, that you should be engaged in no passing, texting, instant messaging, emailing, cell phone usage, and out-of-order conversations. Of course, as we all know, a text message during a meeting could be foiable, so.
yeah, what I would suggest is county board members should be discouraged from engaging in this as all of these items are foiable.
Yeah, I like that better.
And
Because you-
again, if we're gonna do
If you're
one
gonna do
for
it,
the
that's
other,
fine, you just want to be
discouraged, that
prepared
should be
for
the
the fact
same.
it's
Because
all.
there may be a legitimate reason that concerns board business that you have to pass a note to another member, And so doing that with the idea that it can be foilable is okay, because if you're, you know, if something is pulled and you requested a note, you sent a note to someone because you wanted to discuss an issue that was coming up, then there's nothing wrong with that. So I like
Well,
that.
I don't think there's anything wrong with even having the conversation, stand up and walk over, talk to somebody. I just think you should be aware of the fact that you're technically bound to preserve your documents and do all this other stuff, or you violated the Open Meetings Act. It's like, this is crazy.
Well,
And I don't, you know, if we're so out of order that you can't hear because somebody's talking, I mean, guys, you can't tell me that you don't talk to the person next to you sometime during the meeting. I don't believe it.
I don't like it. I don't like to talk to Mike.
It's a good thing though. Remember, the reason why I put the out of order conversation is, some of our colleagues have said to me, I can't believe there's so much talking going on during the meeting. And I'm like, well, that's not, it's the chairman to tell us to shush.
Yeah.
And the fact that Jim Kearns has never learned to whisper.
And sits next to me.
Yeah, I know.
What do you
And
think
Pam's whisper's a little high too.
It is, yes, it is. I wasn't going to call us by name, but like, who did this come from? But, no, you
Also
done that.
because
Go
Jim
ahead.
can't hear.
I know. That's what I say, he never learned to whisper, so.
Yeah, and we do have some members that get very distracted when there's noise going on in the background. So I would just be mindful of that so that we don't, you know, we don't distract whoever member might be speaking at that time.
well, and as far as the electronics, those things are tools. I mean, you could be using a calculator, you could have a document that you're referencing, you know, that was in something that was emailed to us or that you've pulled up for reference. And again.
And I know members who are
FOIA.
taking copious notes on their actual phone in order to read back or to remember to
It
speak of
doesn't say
it.
you can't use your
Correct.
electronics. It says you can't use your
Passing
electronics
notes
for,
and-
right, correct, for communication with other
Amongst
board members
board
during a
members.
meeting. That's the intent.
Yeah.
But theoretically, and I don't want to go too far in the weeds here, but theoretically, if you and I passed a note and I said, hey, I'm going to vote for this, that's no different than you and I whispering or talking one-on-one. It's just if I have 4 or 5 people in my text send and then send that, then that would become the
No,
problem.
the problem is it's here in a public meeting and
Right.
you're having a public debate. You're trying to have a private debate.
Conversation.
While the public debate's going on. And the public's entitled to that information. And so, guys, you could create it. I think back, Ed Harder, in note-taking. Ed Harder used to be on the Plan Commission, the zoning board, excuse me. And when INDEC filed suit back in the, when that was, it had to be in the early 90s. They had proposed a power plant. And the result was INDEC filed suit because their plant wasn't approved. They subpoenaed all of the notes from all of the zoning board members. From that day forward, Ed Harder made a point of throwing his notes out at the way out of the door of every meeting, because he didn't have to take them and keep them, but once he kept them, he had to produce them for court. And so it's like, guys, you should be aware of the fact that you're creating evidence that may be used someday that you might not want to be using. You know, I don't think anybody's going to pick up your voice, your spoken words from the person next to you, but they might pick up that note someday.
Okay.
And so, again, in my mind, it's just be careful you're creating things that, you know, could come back to bite you someday. That was the last thing that you had, Scott, right?
Yes, and just to confirm, so I made a few tweaks to this language, and I wanted to make sure that this is acceptable to your thinking. So we added in, members are discouraged from engaging in ... and are reminded this activity could be subject to the Freedom of Information Act.
Sounds good.
That's fine. I handed out comments from Kelly Wagner. I know that Scott hasn't had the chance to go through these, but I'm sorry,
Maybe.
Maybe.
and the answer may be to go through some of these later. I made one, well, the first item was to create a template for resolutions. Her concern was that we have not had, there are oftentimes resolutions come through, they don't have the financial ramifications in those resolutions. I don't know how we get a template, but I don't have any trouble with encouraging someplace in here that resolutions that come out that spend money, explain where the money's coming from and how it impacts the budget.
Which one?
I don't think we need a
Scott needs a
template
copy
for
of
that.
that, Joe.
I don't think we need a template for that, just,
Okay. I don't, well, whether it's a template or whether, and we talk about what should be in resolutions, there is, I'm sure, a section here that we talk, when we have a resolution, we certainly should, I don't have a problem with the idea that we'll keep the financial impacts of that resolution should be in the resolution. And again, we may have to come back to this in the next month, that's okay.
Is that a rule?
It's not a rule, but
I don't think that's a board rule.
I don't think
It's
it's
not a
not
board
unusual. We've had a template in the past. I do think this is kind of an administrative responsibility.
Yeah.
It's on the county administrator's office at the end to be kind of the gatekeeper into what's ultimately getting on the agenda. I think the automation that we've grown into in the last 4 or 5 years makes it sometimes easier for resolutions to squeak by that don't have all the information that should be.
Right.
Well, I know we've used templates in the past, and it's very common, and Kathy will attest, when you're writing a resolution, say, find me one, find me one that did this before. And if you find one that did it before that didn't have good content in, so I think we can probably accomplish this with our own.
That's what I'm saying too. I have a problem putting it's a board rule. It doesn't, board rules are our behavior. I think Kelly's comment is dead on.
Yep.
And we're sending it to you, and I would just share that with all the departments and indicate that in the future, they need to understand we need financial implications.
Financial
Sorry,
impact.
implications, impact, whatever. But yeah, I don't think I want to add that to the rule.
yeah, I agree.
Well, also, this has come out of a committee generally, when it's being presented, and then people have the opportunity to discuss it in the board meeting, and if they need more clarification or want to, then we make amendments or.
Sometimes what you see is, say, it's in the background sheet. That's what, because there is clearly a request there for financial impact, but that doesn't migrate onto the cover sheet. And Kelly and some other board members like to see it on the resolution itself, and I think we can do probably a better job of watching that. Did you have anything to add on that?
Greg?
Sorry. Couldn't it be as simple as adding that as a required field and describe in the template that we already have for resolutions?
Yeah.
There you
We
go.
already have required fields. They come up red and bold, and we could put next to a whereas, or
Financial
now
impact.
therefore it, red text requiring them to put in financial dimensions if appropriate.
That's perfect.
That would take care of the problem. Okay. Second one had to do with broadcasting meetings. I think we are broadcasting the meetings. I think my only concern with it was if in fact we cannot, for some reason, if the electricity goes out today, do we stop our meeting because they're not broadcast? I don't think that we would do that. I don't know how many people are watching it as we speak right this moment, but and I encourage everybody to watch. But I don't want to have our meetings hamstrung because we're in a situation that, it can't be broadcast.
And even
Maybe
if we have no
we call.
electricity, we can still make an audio recording and publish it after the fact.
She's wanting live, it says live.
Right, so that's too much, it's too much of a burden.
That's a little bit too much of an
Chair
imposition.
Godwell, if I can add to, this has been kicked around in previous versions of the board rules, and it was really for that reason, that we may not have any control over the electricity, or sometimes we have technical issues that prevented us from broadcasting, so.
What if we have a meeting that's off-site?
Yeah.
I mean, we've had joint meetings before years ago with the Conservation District. I think we weren't in a place where we would be able to do a live meeting. We'd be able to record it and ultimately broadcast it, but it wouldn't be broadcast live. And it's not as if we're sitting back and editing our live broadcasts or our replays.
I think we do a phenomenal job of attempting to inform the public and provide as much information and viewing opportunities. And I trust staff enough to make sure that continues.
Agreed.
The mental health board may have been some of the impetus for this.
Yeah, I understand.
And they're moving towards broadcasting. They're working with IT now.
Next item after that, I struck out the words lack of a quorum. If we have a lack of a quorum, we don't have a meeting. So there's not really any time for the county administrator or the chair to make a decision. We don't have a quorum, we're not having a meeting. That's just the way the rules work. But in terms of may cancel the meeting, we've canceled one here because honestly, we didn't have anything on the agenda other than to review status of projects. And as much as I'd like to hear the status of projects, you can send me that in a memo. I don't need to come here to hear the status of the project. Yes.
I think it's more, again, our behavior. Is there something in there, or should we add something in there that says that, every member has a responsibility to attend their committee meetings and the board meetings, and if they are not able to attend, they should notify the chair?
That'd be good,
And then, isn't that what it really is? Then you'd know that you didn't have a quorum, and then there's not an issue, right?
I think
that's
think this was dealing with the fact that if there's nothing on the agenda, that we don't have to have a meeting.
But you know what? We've already gone through this 100 times. That's up to the chairman.
That's up to the chair.
That's the chairman who runs.
But that's what I'm
Yeah.
reading here. That's the only thing I'm reading.
So I would just
Yeah.
say,
I was wondering if she suggested this so that it's in writing, because this is it's current practice. So I wonder if she just wanted to code it, like, have it in writing, our current practice.
I took it as just, it's our current practice, it's what we do.
Right.
Yeah, and maybe it tells a new board member, this is what happens if a meeting's canceled.
yeah.
And I don't have a problem with telling somebody this is our current practice.
But I do like that addition that Pam mentioned, though. If you're not going to come to the meeting, have the courtesy to call the chair and let them
To
know.
do, but yeah, just communicate, that's.
And I tried to do that. I called Teresa yesterday. I said, will you have a quorum if I don't come? She said, I don't know. So I said, okay, I'll be there.
But we did have everybody.
Everybody was here.
Yes.
Cookies.
So, if I may, on that second point, under section 3, quorum and attendance, we talk about quorum, I can add in some language really that says, if you're not coming to a meeting, call.
Would you please, I think it's just again a direction that people need to get in the habit of notifying the chair that they're not going to be there, so we have the availability of managing the meeting a little bit differently. Because a lot of people just assume I'm gonna be there because I'm gonna call in. You can't call in unless there's a quorum physically present. So I think people forget that.
Who's the chair and or county administration?
Yeah, fine, I don't forget that.
Yeah, because there are many times, I know, Joe, you have called me and
Well,
Pam, you.
when I would get a notice or two
So
and
you
they'd be
shouldn't have
going,
to be
okay, wait a
picking up
minute,
the
I'm
phone.
getting close.
Yeah.
Yes,
I would say not chair and or, because
Pick one?
you
Chair
pick
or.
one. I would
County
personally rather see it
administration,
if I'm
you call
chairing
the
a
chair.
meeting to know whether I have a quorum.
Yeah,
Well,
so
see,
the chair.
that was my original thought too. I would just say call the chairman.
Yeah.
Call the chair.
Okay.
Otherwise, I might know of two and he might know of two, and
Yeah, right, and it's not the same two, right?
Okay.
I think you only need 3 exclamation points, though.
It's a little bit of an overkill.
Yeah, we'll also do a little bit of it.
And be nice if you are not able to attend the meeting, assuming that people will always come to their meeting if they,
Able to,
Or just unable.
whatever.
you are unable.
Yes.
Page 19, section 4.8, the next suggestion, I again took this as, this is what we do anyway. So, it might be appropriate to say, and under certain circumstances, we've done this.
I don't like putting it into print because it starts to make a gateway for a slippery slope. Now you have two people only making the decision where multiple board members should have been making the decision. What constitutes, can you tell me what constitutes an extraordinary circumstance for time? We're not heart surgeons, we're not doing transplants. I mean, what can't make 30 additional days?
The only thing I can think of is when you have like
I
a
agree there
grant
are.
or something like that.
I agree there are times, but I think the way we have it in place now, it's handled through the chairs.
Okay.
With putting this in print, you're almost saying that.
We can't get our act together to do this.
Correct. I would not be in favor, let's just say, of adding this, that's all.
It's a toss-up for me.
This is because we do it. This is what we currently do.
Correct, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but once you put it in print, now you've set a precedent that some people may use more often.
I don't see what the value is.
I can tell you that from what I've always liked about things that have gone through the agenda is if it's been to one or two committees, it's been to the majority of the board. They've had, if it's one or two committees, yeah, there's one or two or three people maybe that haven't seen it, but of the 18 people, if you look at any two committees, you've got most of the board present. And that's why I always like to see it go through committees, because I don't really want to hear about those, issues that you might have after it's been cast in stone and 14 people have seen it. So, I'm not a big fan of telling people, here's how to bypass the committee routine. I think it's
Again, Judge, our committee, not this one, I am guilty of this once. And then after seeing the process happen, I'm like, wow, that was patently unfair. And especially the committee that we did it through, because you're right, maybe we don't get to see this something in finance, but it usually, in administration, but it usually it's finance or law and government. Someone has seen it along the way. We hopped one that nobody saw and dropped on like a bombshell to the whole organization. And then to me, and I was in favor of it, sadly, but when it was over, it was kind of like,
there's an easier way to do this.
I just don't want to put it in print. They're doing it, and I have no problem with it.
I'm agnostic, whatever.
All right, then moving on.
I don't, less is more. I don't see why we would participate.
Go on to the next one, page 19, section 4.9. I would take that section and deal with proclamations. My concern about proclamations are, we just wasted huge amounts of time about proclamations that don't actually even require a board vote. I think the chairman could just proclaim on behalf of the county board whatever he or she wants to proclaim. But I do think if we're going to have them, it is important to recognize the county board chair. That's one of the county board chair's jobs to decide who these things go on. But I think as a board, we ought to put some suggestions on it. One of them is, I don't want to see more than 3 proclamations in a month. I don't care what month it is. I don't care what the issue is. I don't see how we need, that's 36 proclamations a year. Seriously, folks? That isn't enough time. The second thing that drives me crazy is when I see them and the event's already over. Yeah, that's great. We proclaimed that they were having an event last week. Well, the third thing is I don't understand why we spend, we have 2-page long proclamations, to declare something, waffle month. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. They're a proclamation, and let's move forward. And I think that's the place I would like to see a template, so that we can, stop spending literally hours of time talking about a proclamation. The other thing is I'm not sure proclamations should be subject to debate at all. If it's that controversial, just vote no, we won't have a proclamation. If it's, but I don't want to spend days on it. It means nothing.
It does nothing?
Well,
Does
it's the
nothing,
chair's
it spends no money.
prerogative to move it forward to the board, and I think that's the process that we should be following. If the chair moves it forward, then we vote on it, and we either vote for it or we vote against it.
Right, but we shouldn't be spending days
Be
on it.
spending all, right, exactly.
And, I know that's not in here, and I know I haven't done it or submitted it, but that's something I think, go ahead, Terry.
When we are looking at this, I think when you have a proclamation for a week, and then that week might actually be for special interest. And that special interest might have given donations to somebody running in a current election cycle. There's some things that seem, if you don't know, the public may not notice it, but it just seems inappropriate. Things that are just historic information, do we need to have a proclamation for it? Like you said, things that are past, special interest groups, and relevant, noteworthy. So it does need to have some, maybe, like you said, looking at the words of what would be included on it. But yes, it is very time consuming, and it's also very distracting. It's a great tactic to get us off task of the scope of our job.
But it also falls back to what we were talking about before about our purview and staying in our lane, because we should be laser focused on county business and not dealing with all the politics in the periphery.
Okay, I don't disagree, except I will tell you, every member within their purview of being elected has the ability to go to the chairman and submit something, right? Whether it's an item on the agenda, whether it's an item to committee, whatever. So I think we have to be careful if we're doing rules on proclamations. The understanding is you have the ability to submit a proclamation. The chairman ultimately gets to decide what it looks like, and if it goes.
That's right.
End of story. That's it,
That's right.
Okay.
right?
And we're not the
I
only
mean,
board that does
we've been very
proclamations.
fortunate in having a chairman who works with people and tries to do. That might not be for every single chairman. The process is very simple. You have the ability as a member to go to the chairman and request whatever. The chairman ultimately, it's his agenda. He gets to decide what goes before the board. End of story. Right? Am I wrong?
No, the chair gets decided. I still think that there's room here to say, folks, we don't need 8 of these a night.
And I think they have to, like you said, they have to be tailored to use.
Well, if you want to congratulate the local football team or baseball team or whatever, that's all fine.
But we're undermining again the chairman. It's his agenda. If he wants to put 90 proclamations on it, it's his agenda.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm saying. I get it.
Well, I don't want to be part of the board with that chairman.
Well, yeah, really. But my point is, the bottom line is you have to say what you're going to mean, right? And we can't say in this instance it's this, and in this instance
Okay.
it's that.
So we give
It's
him
his
the authority
agenda.
or
Make
the
it clear.
authority to do
That's
it.
his ability, right? That's within his purview, not
That's
ours.
right.
But
That's
they're,
how all of this stuff started. This.
right, but they're not
But we
changing
approve it.
his authority.
We also, you could, and the answer might be, one of the first things we do is adopt an agenda. And maybe we adopt the agenda without the proclamations a few times if we get that wrong.
You can do that. That's within our purview, right?
All I was looking at is not taking anything away from the chair, but if there were rules how a proclamation was written, meaning we have rules for member comment of 3 minutes, a proclamation, then at least they come with that type of proclamation to the chair, and then he makes that decision versus some of them have gotten a little long-winded, and a lot of them all at the same time. The ones that disturb me too are the ones that we missed the month entirely, and we're proclaiming that last month we missed. We look foolish, we really do.
Well,
and-
Matt,
and
sometimes that can't be avoided because like in the instance of, I can't remember which holiday it was.
I'm not
I think
against
was
it, but it's happened,
MLK,
yeah.
Where I asked the chair if we could approve it the previous month. And because there were other proclamations on the agenda, I think there were 3 already, he declined that. So we ended up doing it, you know, so the proclamation was written and ready to go.
It's amazing, even with this, how much time we spend on proclamations.
Right, yes.
We're still doing.
But I don't understand.
I acquiesce, whatever you guys like, let the chair make the decision.
And I would say to the chairman and administration, I mean, there are some things that we do every year. MLK, it's Women's History Month. We do that every single year. I don't see why we can't just use the same proclamation, right? We do it consistently.
What if we don't have to read it during the time we're supposed to be working for the county, and we just say, these proclamations will move forward, and the chair just has them publicly posted, Joe Terrio does his thing, and we move on?
I don't care. I mean, there are some people who feel there's a value to that, there are some that don't. Again.
So we have to put needs work on this line.
I have a problem of trying to sanitize everything that comes from members because the members we're there to represent our constituents and bringing things like that forth. I think people are happy to see that. And I would not want to say, no, you can't read that proclamation or limit, and Matt, you said members' comments are limited to 3 minutes. I think you meant public comment.
I'm sorry, you're right.
Yeah, because if we had a limit, we would.
Yeah,
we have a lot of people that would be in violation of that.
Well, again, Joe's right. I mean, that this is checks and balances. The agenda is still the chairman's, the meeting is still the chairman's. The chairman runs the meeting.
Okay.
He can say, we have 6 proclamations today, they cover this, this, and this. I would like to read 2. Gloria Teresa, read the 2. You can do that. And you can call and ask and say, this is really important to me, can I read it, right? In member comment, you can say, we have 6 proclamations. I know we're gonna read only 2 of these proclamations. I just wanna make a comment about this We have to get a little bit more savvy about how to use the system, guys.
Right, that's what I'm thinking about, is that in our recent, I missed the meeting when we had the most recent debate over proclamations, but,
Lucky you.
when if we had it, we were supposed to, I would have been there, right? When it's becoming a political fight, it totally throws off the whole point of the proclamation.
Exactly.
Which is one of the reasons why in my own mind, it's like, let's end debate on proclamations. Either vote yes or no. If you don't want to vote for the proclamation, vote no.
Absolutely, because anything else is now you're controlling.
So you're saying that the chair makes them, whether he puts it on, and then we vote whether we
Do
do
you
it
like
or
it
no?
or no?
That's right. That's the way it should be,
That's right.
period.
And that's how it happens everywhere else in the world.
And if you want to say something, you have your member comment period. There you go.
That's right. Okay, sounds good.
Okay, well, we haven't written that in here, but that was my,
Scott's gonna have to fix it.
Scott, we'll be visiting this next month.
So,
It's okay.
but to be clear, do we want to include something that touches on proclamations and special recognitions in your board rules?
I do. And we'll have to work on it and go from there. And I think it ultimately gets tied together with what Kelly is saying on page 19, 4.9.
Or we could do one of 2 things. We can either put it at the end of your ordinances and resolutions and business section, or we can change section 4 to say resolutions, ordinances, and proclamations. But you're only touching on proclamations once. I think it's better just under the miscellaneous section as 4.22.
Well, that limited to no more than 3 per meeting, that definitely has to go because that is at the discretion of the chair. The chair makes that decision. How many proclamations is, again, the chair's is his prerogative, his or her, prerogative to decide whether it's gonna be there and how many are there. He gets to control that. Not, it should not,
Well, like I said.
that authority
if
should,
I
that
walk
authority
in there,
that he
there's
has
eight
should not be
again,
limited by
I'm gonna
board
ask
rules.
that we not approve them as the adjourn, as the thing. I don't wanna see 8 ever.
Seconded.
Yeah. But anyway, all right, we'll plan that attack when the time comes. Executive session, basically all she's adding is that the staff members or anyone in attendance are under the same cloak.
I thought that was.
I think that's already the case. I don't know how the staff members or anyone in attendance is ever gonna read this, but other than that, I'm fine with it.
We talked a little bit about it, and I said if it made her feel better, I thought the staff was already in that, plus there's no penalty. You can sit there and say we're discouraged, and I could walk right out of the executive session and tell the whole world, there's, it's a suggestion, so. And staff is gonna have to talk about some of it to implement it, right? So, I don't know, I just thought it was
That's a solid point,
redundant.
yes.
I just thought it was.
Were you gonna say something?
I see, I don't see the value in the expansion of what's we already have.
And I don't.
It's a by definition.
Scott is saying something that's interesting.
Well, actually, it was exactly what Member Althoff had said. In my career, I've had executive sessions where we talked about sensitive matters, and no sooner did that door shut, it was broadcast off the roof. And there's not a gosh darn thing that anybody, that public body could do about it, because a member chose to. Unless the statutes have changed, which I don't think they have.
No, they haven't.
It's your duty.
I don't see a reason to add staff member or anyone in attendance.
I don't either.
I do think that the board should be reminded that there's a reason it's in executive session, but I also agree that there's no, when we start talking about board rules affecting staff members or anyone in attendance, I don't know how they're ever gonna know about it. I mean, I'd be willing to bet you we could give quizzes on these to the board and 2/3 of our board would flunk. I can't imagine the general public who happens to be called into a board meeting is gonna know. Public disasters, Lake County. We kind of went through all this with COVID because of the changes in the rules, and now we're back to the old rules. I don't hopefully have a public disaster that we need to meet in anytime soon. But I do know that there's a statute on it.
Is this necessary? I mean, it's, again, by.
I'm neutral on it. I mean, if there's truly an emergency going on and we fall under the Emergency Management Agency Act, our board, has it ever happened since we've been, that we've had to call an emergency meeting in your time here, Pete?
Inside of 48 hours? I don't think so.
Okay. I mean, it could be.
We've exercised emergency purchasing on several occasions.
Okay, but that's not the same.
And I would just ask as a courtesy that you contact Kelly and let her know that this was the discussion and offer her the availability. If there's still something on that list that she has that she feels that strongly about, she can come to the next meeting and advocate to all of us, yes? Yay?
Yep.
I mean, I don't know if she was available today or didn't, I don't know, but I would offer that courtesy.
And I would give that to any board member that wanted to.
Understood, I'm just
No, I
noting.
mean, I brought these here because she had sent them and I thought it was important to get those things heard. I didn't.
Not assuming, I'm just saying, if there's something that she still feels strong when she's not here to explain why she included that, I'd offer her the availability to still come and advocate for one of those issues.
Okay.
I concur with everybody here at the table, I'm just offering that as a reach out and say, if there was really something that we didn't understand, come and explain it to us.
Okay. Well, all right, so we're gonna get one more crack at this. I assume with whatever we're dealing with the last couple items.
As many
And-
cracks as you need.
And so, no, but again, so the board understands, this is something we do biannually. We don't necessarily have to have this done. There's not a deadline other than, I suppose, when the new
November.
board sits in November or in December. So we have some time. If there's anybody else that has suggestions back and forth, I'd be happy to hear them. And in the meantime, I'd say let's tweak those last things, and I'll try to do something with proclamations one way or the other that we can all live with.
So if I get some clarity on the discussion regarding executive session, we do have under ethics and conduct section, we talk about confidential information. Are we making changes to that? I guess I'm not very clear on that direction that was given, or?
Her only change was that,
Add all the other people.
was to add the other people in the room, and I don't,
No,
These are our, we can't control the behavior of staff.
No, we don't
These
want
are
to do
our,
that.
we keep doing
wanna leave
this.
it
These
just
are
as
our
is.
rules. They're county board member rules to direct our behavior. We have no, I can't, these aren't the rules of staff. There's not the rules of the chairman. They're ours.
when Scott gets up on the roof and starts broadcasting it, then we might have an issue with it. But-
Then you call the administrator.
We have clear recourse then.
All right, I like how Mr. Austin was like, yes, I will be recourse.
But again, I want to make it clear, because we're not staying in our lane, right?
All right, I
We just did that. This is our behavior.
Okay.
All right. So just to recap too from Member Wagner's comments, we're going to add something regarding that the county administrator with 10 of the committee chairs can cancel meetings. And then we're going to add something regarding proclamations, just some sort of framework of our
Yeah,
proclamations.
we're still working a little bit on that.
Okay.
And then we need to point out the fact that you're gonna add a section in your scribe notes about making certain that the red line items get in.
But that's not in the board rules.
That's not a board rule. It's basically, maybe the answer is tell us how you use scribe so that we see how the resolutions are built. And that is probably more important than, because I don't expect that I'm ever going to write a resolution. I'm going to call staff and say, can you give me a resolution that does X? I just don't think that it's my job to literally write those. And especially since you've got a program that does it, that's what Scribe is supposed to do, to make certain you consistently hit all the points. Use our tools that we have. So,
I'll share it. In my tenure, the format of resolutions has evolved based on what the county board wanted, what information you wanted to include. That's why you see at the very end of the recitals, this resolution has been reviewed by whatever committees. That wasn't asked, it was put in. Financial dimensions, specific financial dimensions were asked to put in way back when. So there's certain elements in there that we do because the county board said, we expect this. And so, you know, in 10 years, a county board may want something different, and we'll respond to that. So whatever you guys, our job is to give you the information you need to make your decisions.
So I just need some clarification. Are we adding that the chairs can cancel meetings?
well,
Because they do that anyway, so.
right, we're adding it, but we changed it a little bit. I took out the section about quorums, because you don't have a meeting if there is no quorum.
Right, but
Okay.
do we need, I think Matt commented on this, and I'm in agreement there. I just don't know, I don't know that we need to put that in there because.
I thought it was a mechanism to tell people what we're doing.
Well, we
That's
can
all.
say it's, can you go back to that? So let me see.
Mine was on the 19.4.8, where the committee items can be walked around not having a meeting between a time issue.
I just want to see how it's worded because
That's,
once you put something like that in writing, you know,
But
it could be.
It is what we're doing.
It could, you know, it could be like giving a license. It's like, because, I mean, I think we have responsible chairs who are not going to cancel a meeting unless it's necessary.
But our delay part is we added on to it that you needed to tell the chair you're not gonna be there.
Yeah, that is,
Isn't obvious to all of our
That's
board members. Not all of our colleagues realize that they need to be telling their chairs they're not
And it
showing up for
spells
meetings.
out specifically insufficient agenda items. It doesn't mean just because you don't feel like it today. Right, so I think it's okay.
What, that isn't good enough?
Well,
My feelings don't count?
show you.
All right. Kim, are we, I know we're gonna see it one more time. Are we okay to move forward? Yep. Okay. Capital plan update.
Good morning. Starting in Cary, the firing range project will be turned over to the sheriff on May 20th. And at some point between May 20th and June 10th, I believe the sheriff's going to organize an open house for review.
I think that was just sent out for a ribbon.
That's a ribbon cutting, but open houses to walk through first.
Okay.
At the courthouse, both the court services project is substantially complete and the jail chiller project is substantially complete. Both of those projects are done, wrapped up, short of a couple of minor punch list type items. Out at archive storage, we're complete. We have a contract for the asphalt. That was the one remaining item coming into spring. That's under contract. It's just now waiting for that contractor to commit to a schedule.
Are they all kind of falling within the budget?
Yeah, everything that I'm discussing right now is well within the budget.
That's unbelievably good. Thank you. Thank you.
Out at Valley High, that project also is going along nicely. Interior painting is occurring, grid ceilings are going in, drywall is complete. So now the space itself is starting to take shape. Windows are to be delivered in May. Right now they're boarded up. Masonry, exterior masonry is complete on that project. Mr. Anarilla has, with the help of purchasing, put up furniture, equipment out for bid. Those prices have come back in well within the budget that was established for that. So things are tracking well out at Valley High is also. Crystal Lake Public Health ARPA project, which is some renovation to both sides of the building use. We had a kickoff meeting 2 weeks ago, Thursday, where we just met with the architect and both sides leadership to come together and reiterate the goals of the project to try to keep things running straight. Is that we really want to have a project ready for bid in August, which is quick for an organization like ours. So that's, but August we'd like to have, if not on the street being bid, at least in the hands of the purchasing department, ready to go out for bid. I'll bring in, I'll demote some of these things that we've been talking about and then promote some of the things that we haven't been talking about, which is the coroner's lab renovation project. We're also have a pre-bid, pre-purchase contract for the rooftop equipment here. Really won't be a lot to talk about that, other than we'll design some mechanical component of that to get them installed in the spring. A little bit more discussion may want to be had with the parking lot project. That's also a resolution to approve the engineering side of it is in front of the county board this month. Won't be a lot to talk about as far as the parking lot itself goes. It'll be more or less how the EV, what we do there. Right now, I think our plan is to bring infrastructure out to the area that the EV would logically belong. And then we can, without moving backwards or forwards, we would have that infrastructure in place when we want to decide to actually install the charging station components. Or do we want to install the charging? That won't be a decision that we need to make today. As far as installing, we can make a recommendation to say we have the capacity to bring in 18 vehicles, let's say, and we'll begin at the bid stage with 4 or 6 or whatever purchasing and the fleet managers say makes sense, and then we can have discussion there when we get to that point. So we'll talk a little bit more about that project as we move along. Other than that, that's where we're at.
Questions, anyone?
Yeah, I have a question about the Crystal Lake ARPA project. So what you were talking about moving forward, is that for the engineering to determine the feasibility of whether we can do the drive-through and all of that we want to do?
Right,
Okay,
exactly what will that drive-through look like?
okay.
Will that drive-through support both human vaccinations as well as
Animals.
animals? And what does that separation look like? Can we accomplish both within the budget? And if not, I would assume that humans would prevail, but.
Well, we do have some the ARPA funds for that, correct? But what I was, I guess my question is, have we determined that we can put a drive-through there? Because there was some question with whether the space would allow that to happen.
Yeah, we can get a drive-through there.
Okay, good.
Exactly where on the property. The engineer that we ended up selecting brought a concept to bring a drive lane around the back of the property, or what would be the south side of the property. It's a nice idea. It's an expensive idea because that entire back of the property then becomes a roadway, and that's $450,000 to $550,000 worth of work, which is a lot when we have such a big parking surface to begin with. So we're really trying to look at that, using that existing parking surface as a drive lane rather than bringing it around and creating.
There's another issue there. That's part of the Crystal Lake watershed.
Correct. Yeah.
The city of Crystal Lake's gonna have a fit if you.
Hey, we would have to remove at least as much of the parking surface as we would add into that driveway.
Okay.
Or maybe
So it's
discount.
a net zero, okay.
So we just began that work. Our goal, I think at a high level, is to not bring it around the back of the building.
I didn't think there was enough room to bring it back around the building back. I've been there a few times, but I just didn't remember there being enough room. I was wondering how that worked.
There's enough room with setbacks. It does become a question for Crystal Lake. It is in the watershed, and it will be something that would need to be worked out rather quickly, which is, again, a bit of an oxymoron when you say things like that work through very quickly because they don't notice. We would have to come in, if we were to go that way, with a very aggressive, this is how we'll accomplish it by removing and enhancing impervious surfaces that we have today. And which would be the tack that we would need to take, because that'd be the only way Crystal Lake would improve it.
So when we are doing something like this as a county, we need to coordinate with Crystal Lake and go through their planning and all of that, and they can say, no, you can't do that.
Well, they can. This was built by State Farm originally. This was
I
an auto
remember
center for
the State
Farm.
Farm building that.
And that's how it got there. And for whatever it's worth, the only reason I remember is because I had something else, not this project. I didn't represent them, but I was in the room when they were fighting over whether or not they were covering too much area with hard surface coverage. I mean, I just happened to be at the meeting. It wasn't, but I do remember there was some real debate whether they were going to allow it to be built at all.
Yeah, I haven't driven past that in the last couple of days, but I imagine with the big rains that we just had, there's a lot of standing water around that property today.
I'm sure there is. Yeah.
We'll work through it.
Thank you.
You got it.
Anyway, thank you. Scott?
Yeah, I wanted to just give an update on the election center. It's not something directly under Tom's report, but I think it's germane to this committee in this time. Election center is moving forward. They are on schedule. In fact, they might be done a little bit early, which is making their county clerk very happy, so he can start moving his equipment in soon. We have a July 1 was our target date So we're cautiously optimistic we'll start sooner. We are tracking on budget for a lot of the internal stuff that we needed to do. In fact, this morning you approved a resolution for the networking equipment. Also on finance tomorrow, I believe Carrie Weiss, our CFO, is going to have a resolution to change the funding source because we're able to use ARPA funding to cover some of the costs, where the original resolution did not contemplate that. So that helps, provide some relief to the county's budget. So be on the lookout for that. The construction, I'll tell you, fortunately, we're tracking a little bit higher than we had planned. We had to do some unexpected HVAC work, especially for the back section of the building, which previously didn't have the climate control, but we needed to work on that. So I'm hesitant to put a number in. It's not a significant percentage beyond what we had projected, but I do. Once we true up what we're going to spend for our internal work, our networking and everything else, and then we get the final numbers for the construction, I'll be in a better position to find out what's going to offset. Very likely, if it's an increase, I'll have to talk to the county administrator and the CFO to see if we need to bring a resolution forward just to amend our budget slightly. But if that happens, I just want to give you some advance notice.
Thank you.
All right, any questions?
Short timers next.
Good morning, everyone. Human resources. So there's a couple things that are brewing. Again, the Department of Labor just changed their salary level for exempt employees who are not eligible for overtime. And that level is going from like 33 to 43 as of July 1st, but it's going up to 58,656 in January. So through the budget process this year, you may see some positions being reclassified, or we might have to do a separate resolution, being reclassified from exempt to hourly, but we'll look at those. So that's just kind of a heads up. We have our annual spring, yeah.
Sure, when was the last time that they corrected that amount?
Oh, it's been a long time.
Okay.
For some reason, I'm thinking 68, but it might be 86.
That long, would that account then for the huge increase in?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
All right, okay.
The annual employee survey on work environment is out. Last year, we had 518 employees respond. I really would like to see 600. As of this morning, we had 233, and it's been out for a week. So the deadline for that is May 24th, so I'll be pushing to try and get that out. There's really good information that comes out of that survey every year, and there are some things that we've been measuring year after year after year, looking for how are we moving? Are we moving in the right direction? Employee Appreciation Week, Public Service Employee Appreciation Week is this week. So if you see public employees or if you're addressing them in any way, please remember this is a special week. We do have a lunch tomorrow for employees if you're around. We will be having a lunch for employees here in these rooms.
Starting at 11.
Please join us. 11, 11:30, 12, and 12:30 seatings. Thank you for approving the compensation study resolution this morning. Again, that's going to take effect on July 1st, assuming it goes through the rest of the committees and the board. And again, our next study won't be until 2026, so it will be out of my hands. But that's moving forward. That's a big one right now. So one of the things that we set up, supervisor training, because again, we've really looked at employee work environment and how employees are experiencing McHenry County. And part of that was, what's their experience with their supervisor? And so we broke it down into 6 two-hour sessions. We've done the first 4. Number 5 is happening this month, and number 6 is happening on June 12th. We've had about 40 to 50 supervisors attend each of those sessions. It has been amazing. And part of it is because it's the first time around and they're all getting refreshers on what they should already know. Some of them are new and they're hearing it for the first time, and that's who it's really designed for. But it's so that new supervisors, as they come in with within their first 6 months, they have received everything from the county that they need to be an effective supervisor. or know where to go to get what they need to be an effective supervisor. So those trainings have been going very well. We've been getting really good feedback from those. We asked different departments with different specialties come in and speak on certain subjects, so that's been fun. The annual harassment and bullying trainings that are required through our personnel policy, just did an audit. There's only about 70 employees in the county who have not completed that yet, and many of them are brand new, and so they have a little bit of time to still do that. So that audit is done. And mental health. So mental health, well, wellness and mental health have been a big focus of HR's staff. Specifically, Suzanne has really headed that up. We now have the highest recognition from Mental Health America. We have a platinum level. We have really been trying to improve our EAP services, our trainings. We do have a guest speaker that's coming in on May 24th. She's also, it's going to be broadcast live, but being in person would be much better if you could come. We're really excited about that speaker. And I think that's probably it, unless you can think of anything else. Right. That's what's happening in HR.
You got one more meeting with us?
Pardon me?
We have one more meeting with you, or are you taking it off of early vacation?
No, no. Too much to do.
Pushing hard at the end.
Pushing hard, pushing hard. Yeah, thank you.
Cheryl, what time is that meeting on 524? And
What time is the meeting on the 24th, Suzanne?
We're doing it through the lunch hour at 12.
12 o'clock. Yeah, that's one of the things that we're trying to work with the departments. In order for some employees to be able to attend sessions, we have to do it outside of their work hours. And it'd be nice if we could be able to have their supervisors support them coming during work, but right now they do it during their lunch hours, so.
Communications, come on up.
All right. Part of the agenda I know you've all been waiting for. All right, communications. So what has happened in the past month? I had the honor of going downtown to the ABC 7 Chicago studios with fellow PIOs across the area to learn more about how we can better communicate during times of crisis with our media counterparts in Chicago. So it was a fascinating opportunity. I got to meet lots of different PIOs from the Illinois State Police, even the Secret Service, and various villages. So again, it was a great experience. We also got to meet the editors of the ABC 7 Chicago, and it was good opportunity to put names to faces and better communicate in general. So,
Did they give you any specifics on how to do that, communicating with them during a crisis?
specifics?
Yeah, like
a phone number?
Yeah, like a phone, or who, or is there a chain of command? I mean, what? It wasn't just a hi, I get to meet you because you're cool. What did they? I mean, what kind of guidance?
Yes, we got all the communications, we got all the contact information for all of the different editors, for daytime, afternoon, and evening, so we can know exactly who to contact directly instead of just going to a news desk if need be. We also got to understand a bit better what their technical abilities are, how, for example, how what it takes to get them to send out the chopper, if there's a disaster and that kind of thing. So again, it was very helpful to be able to put names to faces and say, oh, I've talked to you on the phone, and to be able to have candid conversations. For example, one of them was, if you guys are all out at a scene and there's really nothing going on, would you be able to trust us to be able to tell you, look, there's nothing going on here? And again, sometimes those are conversations that PIOs need to be able to have with their media counterparts to understand that this isn't the place, or to be able to know who to talk to and say, I can't have you here at this particular site because it's not, because sometimes it might be dangerous to have press in a certain location because, maybe there's fire, maybe there's, a situation, but I can have you over here so you can get the shot that you need to be able to tell your story. So, I mean, those are some of the conversations that were going on, and I know that it sounds kind of bland to say having a conversation and being able to meet people face to face is important, but it is, because these relationships are based on trust. And to be able to start developing those relationships, you can better tell stories together.
Yeah, but they change. So my ask of you too is if you obtained extraordinarily important information about how to do this and how to manage this, are we going to internally come up with written documentation and policies so that in the event you're hit by a bus, somebody now has no, well, you're going on a long honeymoon. Is there going to be written documentation, or are you planning to do that so whomever, if there's a situation and you specifically are not there, somebody can follow a written plan?
There isn't a written plan, but I did communicate this information at our communicators meeting on Monday. We have monthly communicators meeting with the different PIOs across the different departments.
So somebody can walk in and find all of those phone numbers someplace?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I need. Thank you.
So that was piece one. Secondly, county administration has been working with the planning and development department to put out some press releases regarding the comprehensive plan. We also have been working with the treasurer's office in regards to the new tax bill that's going out and helping out with the bug slip design and that sort of thing. But I'd really like to give a shout out to our health department communicators. They've done a spectacular job with Operation Dropbox. I don't know if you guys know this, but last year there were only 28 sites for people to come and drop off goods for our veterans. And this year, there's over 80. And that's because they did a great job getting out the word to the community. And I really hope that, you know, last year's record-breaking collection of 5,466 pounds of donations to our veterans can be broken. So, really excited to see where that goes. I'd also like to give a shout out to the Division of Transportation because they're doing something new and, well, it's new and really cool for our community. They're actually doing a Touch a Truck event. We've never done that as a county, and it's going to be at the Lanes Farm and Fleet here in Woodstock on the 19th. So I encourage you guys to please attend and, you know, learn about the different ways that the Division of Transportation serves all of you and your constituents and the equipment they use. So,
What did you call that?
Touch a
it's a
truck.
Touch a Truck event.
Touch a truck.
Every township in McHenry County does one.
What day did it, the 19th or
The
something?
19th.
Sunday.
Finally, my favorite section, follower growth and reach. So our Facebook channel is, you know, really booming. And it's, you know, it's done better than compared to last month. It reached 76,800 accounts in the month, and that's way higher than on average it was last year. Our other accounts, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn, they didn't do as well compared to last month, but again, Facebook is our big pusher anyhow. But anyhow, just thought you guys would be interested to know where we stand on that. You can see some of the top posts that we had going on in the past month listed below. And that's what I've got for you. Do you have any questions for me?
You do a really good job on LinkedIn as well. Thank you. That really, I go there a lot, so that's really cool to see what's going on in the county.
I think we've done, Alicia, you've done
Yeah.
an excellent job in making the county much more visible and accessible by the general public. I really do. You've done a great job.
Is Twitter again, or is it still X?
It's a,
Still X.
Just make sure my notes are right, I don't do any of them.
All right, well, thank you.
all right, thank you. Future topics before we go into executive session, anybody have any that need to be on, or did I forget something from a
Can I say
priority?
a couple things on the county administrator report?
Oh, I guess, I'm sorry, I didn't take it off.
Just super quick, I did have the opportunity a couple weeks ago for a full one-day meeting out in FEMA in Washington DC. It was so cool, and I just want you guys to be confident and proud of what the emergency managers around the country are doing. There was like 50 of us that flew in, and it was an all-day meeting from 8 in the morning till we got done at like 5:15. But the whole point of the meeting was like, when you look at the arc of time and the exponential change, you know, like you go from the printing press being invented like whatever 1400, and you know literacy rates by 1900, and then AI, it's going straight up. So they really challenged people to think about what's the world going to look like in 2050. And that was we did all day long. They had 4 different scenarios, all kinds of smart people. I was hanging all day with the Director of Homeland Security from the state of Minnesota, and just like thinking about these 4 scenarios and how emergency managers are going to have to prepare for them. So just wanted to share that. It was really neat.
Was it more focused on the local level, Pete? local, it wasn't state people, it was
It
local?
was both state and local, and like, you know, I in Minnesota, I was with the state of Nevada Homeland Security Director, City of Grand Rapids Emergency Manager. I was there in my role as a regional chair of FEMA 5, and FEMA paid for it all. It was really cool. And they're coming out with a formal report in October, and we'll share that with all you guys when we get it. This was a component of that. Economic development, I was supposed to get on a state webinar starting at 10. It's just, and I'll jump in when I can, it's just a statewide update on economic development right now. But more importantly, you know, your MCEDC is in the process of identifying a new director, and they'll be doing some interviews on Tuesday. And I think it's important to note that we have been working, Scott, Cheryl, Kerry Wise, Mike Scala, about how to fold in the county's benefit package for the new economic development director. It's really been imperative that we see that that's probably going to need to be part of the package. We can accomplish this, and we will need to bring a resolution forward. That's likely to come in June. There's some different kinds of mechanics that can make that work, but from a legal standpoint, it's all possible, and we've seen some good examples of that. Hopefully, we'll have a new name for you to announce very shortly.
Very cool.
We also at 11 a.m., Alicia, she just left. We're going to have a meeting with the state senator. What's her name?
Mary Ely Allen,
Yeah,
isn't it?
we're continuing to position ourselves for the public safety social worker funding. It's important to us there. Last week, Chairman Bueller and I, and Under Sheriff Bucci, Sheriff Titleman, Chief Mikowski got to tour the U.S. Medical Glove Facility. That's the former Motorola plant. And it is really exciting what's happening up there. Kind of this veil of secrecy is being lifted, and they are ready for our help. As I sat here this morning, I set up a meeting with their HR director for the 30th, I think, 30th of May. I don't know what day that is. We're going to bring out myself and Scott, Jeff Pointer from Workforce Network, Catherine Jones from MCC, our Vice President of Workforce, and a couple representatives from DCEO. So we're kind of all getting out there because they want about 200 more employees in the next 60 days or so. So it's happening. They're going to 24/7 operations in midsummer, and it's exciting. But they need more people, and I think we've got the tools to help them. So, like I said, we've known this is going on, but they haven't really asked for our help yet because it was all kind of a lot of quiet. But the doors are opening up, and that's exciting.
There's a lot of potential for McHenry
Right.
County
Oh,
from that. There really is. It's just,
That's a big
yeah,
deal.
that's gonna, that's.
ComEd is another big player in this. Been talking with them, and we finally have a load request that's going to be materializing tomorrow, I think, from U.S. Medical Glove in terms of what they really need from ComEd, because they don't have the power right now to meet the delivery that they would like to see. They've got to work at some different ways to get there, whether it's on some on-site solar or some generators, but they also need more help from ComEd. So more to come on that. Cheryl and Suzanne mentioned the employee appreciation picnic tomorrow, so I won't mention that again. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to go into executive session to discuss union negotiations, employee performance? What was that for? And executive session minutes. So moved by Terry, second by Gloria. Roll call. Gloria?
Yes.
Teresa?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
And I vote yes, so We changed the sign on the door. For purposes of roll call, let's go back in session. Terry, you're still here. Pam, Matt.
Teresa's here.
Teresa,
Gloria?
Laura, and I'm here, so we still have a quorum. The only thing that comes out of executive session to do is can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the prior two that we reviewed, and I already gave back to you, so I don't have the dates.
January 9th, 2024, and February 7th, 2024.
They're approved as written, but not necessarily, not released at this time. Any changes or corrections? All right, then,
He raised his hand.
okay, whatever, that's fine. So we got a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, those are approved, but they won't be released yet. Then last but not least, can I have a motion to adjourn? By Terry, seconded by Teresa. All those in favor say aye.